Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our second session of today, this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. You can see we've got Jazz from Wolves, we've got Gareth from Yorkshire, we've got Phil, we've got Esther from South London. I'm assuming it's as scorchio everywhere in the country as it is down here in Poole in Dorset. And Anna tells me it's exactly the same in Kent as well. So thank you for joining us. Hope you're all doing very well. Coming up to bank holiday weekend, and we are going to be at 99 live webinars on Friday when we do start for the bank holiday, which is kind of insane considering all of us were meant to be at Olympia in London about 2.5 weeks ago for a live event with 4,000 or 5,000 people. So it's been interesting, but 99 episodes as of Friday. So pivoting a business, which is a lot of what Anna's going to talk about, funnily enough, and we are just one example, to be honest with you. So we are talking adapting and pivoting as the subject matter. So Anna's going to be looking to cover from Startups magazine, which I've had the pleasure of speaking at a couple of their events. When did you launch now? Are we talking 2 years? Are we talking 18 months? I was trying to get my head.
2 years ago, so it was April 2018.
It was April, yeah. So I spoke at that one, and then the one after that. Very cool. So Anna's going to be covering things such as how startups have been adapting and pivoting to survive in the current landscape, and how some have completely and utterly changed their business models. What changes Startups magazine themselves have made, and how the startup world has reacted to being, everything's virtual right now, isn't it? Everything's virtual. And also covering what changes we might expect to see in the future and how this is going to affect the industry. So thank you all for joining us. You can see a bit of banter going on between Trev and Jazz already on there about football. So now we're going to dive into startups, into the startup world with Anna Flockett from Startups magazine. So I'm going to bring your slides up first, Anna, focus them on that.
Perfect.
There you go. And you can still see myself and yourself. I do love your slide. I said I'm doing my podcasting one tomorrow. They ain't going to look anything like this. Look at that, polished. Okay. As always, everybody, those of you who've been onto our webinars over the last 6-7 weeks, use the chat box for me on the right-hand side. That's the best place to pop a question. Let us know if you're a startup. Let us know. Are you a startup? Are you a scale-up business? Interested to know what kind of audience we're talking to. Let us know. Post up any chat. Post up any, Startups magazine. Whenever they have their events, it's a real networking opportunity. So do post up your links here, like your LinkedIn profile, so people can connect. I'm all for all of that. Or your websites, for your businesses. I think that's all great to interact with each other on here as well. So hi. Himanshu, thank you for joining us. Hi, Nathan, thank you for joining us. Hi, Trevor as well. So I'm going to pass you over to Anna. So Anna, take it away.
Thanks, Alex. So we obviously all know that it's been extremely weird and unprecedented and unknown times, and that's just in terms of general life. And we all have, worries, unanswered questions, but what about when it comes to business? A lot of people own their own business, startup businesses, SMEs, or like you work for a business. So there isn't just yourself and your job to think about. You've got employees and customers. And then obviously thinking about that layer deeper about startup businesses and these small SMEs, they don't necessarily have like years of background and lots of cash to fall back on. And a pandemic like this can be make or break. So there'll be some startups that don't make it through. But I do believe that most of them that don't make it through, unfortunately, will probably come up with new ideas and new businesses and kind of just start their startup again. And the majority of founders out there that, I've been lucky enough to come across and meet or even just hear about through being in this industry are so creative, and they're born entrepreneurs. Like, not everyone can just create a business and it be a success. So it's not the end, it's just a new beginning. But that is not the case for everyone, and hopefully most of us will make it through. So what do we do? What have people been doing? Sorry, I've been just trying to move my slide. Don't know how to do that. There we go. So people have been pivoting, as it says in the title today. And like I said before, a founder, an entrepreneur, they're a certain type of person. It's not just your average Joe Blogs. Like, you do have to be a certain type of person for it to work. And so I think for that reason, a lot of startups in this time are going to make it work for them no matter what. And yes, some startups are fighting to survive and they're winning that battle and they just want to come out the other side and carry on. But a lot have also been pivoting and adapting and, you know, quickly making changes so that they're now succeeding, and at the same time also helping other people, other businesses. It really has been a time where people have been able to come together and adapt and change, and, you know, businesses from that are doing well, which is just an added bonus. So without me just waffling on, let me give you some examples. We've recently spoken to quite a few startups that are, you know, doing a lot of work in the COVID space. They have pivoted and adapted. And some of the examples here are Blue Heart Hero. Amin, the founder, uses 3D printing for prosthetics, and he also designs them. And since COVID-19 broke out, he's been using his 3D printers to print PPE equipment, mainly face shields, and send them to local hospitals. He's based in the US, so he's been sending them to hospitals in New York City and Utah, all for free. And he's been doing some amazing work in this time, and he just took it upon himself. You know, business is going to slow down. I won't be able to do as much helping with the prosthetics. So what can I do to help? And yeah, he's just completely changed his business model and helping make this equipment and send it out for free, which is amazing. COVID-19 and the landscape gave him limited resources, so they've mainly adapted and had people reach out to them about working together with design collaborations and thinking about the future and what else they can do, and joining together and help doing more design and, like I say, making equipment that can help people in this time of need. That's one amazing example. Another one that you can see on the side is Your Local Delivery. And now this one is a slightly different story, and this startup itself was kind of born during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is pretty amazing. So there was a digital marketing agency called Digital Beans, and again, the founder, Pip, decided to create a new startup called Your Local Delivery, which is an online platform which started out for local businesses, mainly in Kent, to keep them selling and to keep their businesses going and to keep people, you know, people were able to log on and buy stuff for them that they wouldn't necessarily been able to do to keep these businesses alive during this pandemic. And since then, it's been so well received that it's been used for businesses further than just Kent, and it's been used across businesses all over the UK. So, like, Pip's managed to then help businesses all across the UK keep them going and keep them alive, because a lot of small businesses don't have websites. So he was saying, like, they want to still sell products or, you know, give things back to people that they can in these times, but people haven't been able to communicate with them, or just logging on online, it hasn't been that easy. So creating this platform basically build an online store for loads of UK businesses to go and keep selling, and people can still get their favourite products, and it doesn't have to just be food and drink, it could have been anything. And Pip said originally he built it because it was kind of like he wanted to keep even his favourite things during pandemic, and so he thought loads of people would, so then these businesses, you know, can keep alive. And Pip is such a great example of businesses that didn't even need to necessarily adapt and he didn't need to do this, but he did, and it's helped so many businesses again adapt and pivot themselves in a way that they now stand a chance of surviving these times that they may not have been. And the feedback has been amazing. And so yeah, you should check out Your Local Delivery if you haven't yet, people. Tended is another one of my absolute favorite stories. A startup from Lincolnshire who worked in like wearable IoT technology products to improve workplace safety. And I had the pleasure of speaking to Leo, the founder, who's such a great guy and was working out in Kenya doing some charity work, and decided that he needed to create a device that could keep you safe while you're at work in kind of any sort of, you know, platform. And fast forward a few years, they have a successful business, and then boom, Corona hits. They didn't know what they were going to do. You know, they're in a bit of limbo, like weren't sure where the future was going to take them. And then a lot of customers and businesses started asking if, you know, they could create a wearable safety device that worked with social distancing, that worked within the parameters of coronavirus, so that they can start having employees come back in to help kind of get the economy moving back again, because so many people have been unable to work. It's costing businesses loads. It's people are like unsure of what their futures can be at work, and people are bored mainly. So kind of using that the products and the skills that they had, they use IoT and AI, to speed up the process and build something that they could get people back to work, working safely. For a number of businesses, but a few of the examples that Leo gave: construction, manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics, and it's one of the major stepping stones that obviously can get the economy moving again and get the whole country like back in movement. When you think you're at a massive standstill, it's just going to help, isn't it? And Tended is such a great story. Speaking to Leo, he was just so honest and said at the beginning of the pandemic, Tended weren't in the best place and they were worried. And he, you know, it's totally flipped. And they're now recruiting new staff just because he decided to go and take a risk and go for it. And it really paid off. So I do think that even in these times when you have to obviously be a bit careful and, you know, think about your future, at the same time, risk can always pay off. I mean, startup founders know that. You must have to take a risk at some point to kind of take the plunge and go for it in the first place. And it just proves that these risks and these jumps, they can actually pay off. And finally, talking about amazing people, my last example for now is Generate. They are a browser extension that enables people to monetize their own data. So you can make between like £5 and £20 a month on average just by browsing the internet. So Sam founded Generate because he could see that our entire digital lives were being used online. They were being tracked. Companies were using our details and making loads of money from it. And he thought, why are these companies making loads of money, and why aren't the people that's data it is making any money? So we wanted to make sure that the users got rewarded. So when I spoke to Sam, you could tell how passionate he really was about this. So you just add it onto your browser extension and you get rewarded. And what was amazing also is that you can obviously claim the rewards, or you can just donate it to charity. And Generate work with a number of charities that then they just generate loads of money for each month from people's donations. And in the current climate, Generate have been doing some incredible work, and they've actually shown over 2 million NHS and stay-at-home ads to their users free of charge to help encourage people, obviously, stay at home. And Generate supporting the charities in the COVID space. All their chosen charities at the moment, they're in the COVID space. So they're using their technology to help raise as much money as they possibly can for them. And also Generate wanted to support businesses in a similar position to them. So they're publishing some research on how people's online behaviours actually changed during the COVID crisis. And they've analysed more than 32 million different browsing sessions to identify these changes, and will publish this report so businesses can look at this data, and hopefully it will help them pivot and again change and adapt. So, you know, other businesses again will be surviving. And Sam was really interesting to talk to because he explained in a time like this for startups, there's 3 things that businesses really need to do, and that is respond, rebuild, and recover. And now respond means you need to cut your costs, maybe furlough your staff. You need to, you know, put out these minor fires that you can take control of. And then in terms of rebuild, you need to look at what has changed with your consumers, adapt your business as necessary. You know, look at it black and white. What can I do? What has changed? What direction do I need to take now? And then finally, when you get to the recover stage, you need to implement new revenue streams and look at different marketing approaches. And you need to, you know, look at your growth, plan it and think, right, you know, this may have put a spanner in the works. This may have been a massive hurdle and we've fallen, but let's pick ourselves up. What direction do we need to take now to carry on with growth? So Generate are at the rebuild stage. They've recently lost an investment at the time due to COVID. So of course, in hindsight, you know, Sam said if they'd have known, they wouldn't have gone through the funding. But, you know, they have pivoted, they have adapted in such a great way. And as you've heard me say, they are helping in so many different ways and helping businesses. So, you know, they will be fine, and it's amazing work to see. So, talking about other businesses, what are Startups Magazine doing?
What have you been doing?
What have we been doing? Have we been doing anything? Come on, Anna. Well, all these startups I've just been talking about, they are on our brand new podcast that we at Startups Magazine have just brought out. So this leads me on nicely talking about, you know, what we've been doing to adapt and help in these times. Podcast is one major thing. We've been planning on bringing a podcast out for a very long time, but, you know, to make a really successful and good podcast, it needs so much time and effort, because you want it to be the best you possibly can. You want to give it as much time and thought and planning as much as you possibly can. And COVID broke out, and our last issue kind of broke out. Our last issue was released 2 weeks after the whole pandemic kind of broke out globally. And so we were able to talk in the latest issue, kind of touch on COVID, but without it being totally focused, because I think by now people are sick of hearing about it. So there was quite a few startups that we interviewed, and we did like a normal interview, and then just at the end they kind of touched on it because it was right at the beginning. And there was one example that really stuck with us, a company called Butterfly, who had an ultrasound scanner, and they basically built one that was more adaptable and more cost effective and portable for everyone to use. And they brought it out a few years ago, and it was great. It's really well received, and now it can actually be used to scan people's lungs and detect COVID-19. So we heard this story and was like, this is obviously a perfect example of a startup that's doing some amazing work and has kind of changed or added a bit onto their business model to help. How many others are there? And then we started receiving all these stories, and we were like, we need a platform, like we need to get these stories out there, and we need to, you know, like help people connect so that they can all hear about these amazing things and see if it can help them. But also, like, we want to shout about these things because these people are doing amazing things. So that's when we decided to kind of build this podcast and give that platform for the startups to talk about it. And so that's when it was focused on the pivoting, the adapting, the surviving, the changing. And as I say, the 4 that I've just spoke about, they're all on the podcast, and you can check it out. And there's loads more on there as well. So, you know, it's really worth listening to the Serial Entrepreneur. And so we had to adapt to make this. Obviously, normally a podcast, you'd go to a studio, you'd interview people in the same room. But we did all the interviews and recordings over Zoom. We had to work with what we had because we just felt it was really important to highlight these stories. There wasn't time to wait. We didn't want to wait until this was over and then talk about it, because also it wouldn't be as relevant. And you know, it just seemed right at the time. So that's where we focused our energy, and that's where we adapted. But like, I mean, it hasn't been that different for us. Obviously, not being in the office, you miss the social aspect and the banter, and I feel like you can brainstorm a bit more with your colleagues rather than over a Teams chat or a Zoom webinar or whatever. But obviously, one big change for us was the whole, because we're a print and digital magazine, we weren't able to print the mag for the last issue, or again, we won't be for the latest issue, which is coming out next week. So if you haven't already, subscribe and check that out. But yeah, so we weren't able to print the magazines, mainly because the distribution that we send them out to, they all kind of go to workspaces. Like, that's a large chunk of our distribution, and all the workspaces are closed. And it is quite sad, and it is upsetting, because I know that a lot of our readers kind of do look forward to the print copy, and that's something that makes us a bit of us. But at the same time, you do have to think about it practically. You know, I'm sure it would be safe, but like, having another physical object is just something that you don't need right now, and you can't catch coronavirus through a digital mag. So, you know, we had to think sensibly, and so the printing is just on pause. And I think it'll be even more exciting when it comes back, and people will be absolutely buzzing to hold a hard copy again. So I'm excited for that. Another way that we have been adapting is obviously we used to host events, like Alex said at the beginning. He's been to a few, he's spoken, you know, we like to put on an event with every issue so that we can give you as much content and information as we possibly can. And obviously events in person are not happening right now. But we decided to host these events as webinars. So our first webinar was based around the theme of the issue, as they normally are. And it was all about creating a positive company culture, which, to be honest, you couldn't have picked a better topic to fall within the outbreak of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like there's no time to hope for or plan for a pandemic. But oh my goodness, it felt at such perfect time in terms of issues. So we adapted the webinar and the event from creating a positive company culture to creating a positive company culture virtually. And it was really useful as well because we had like an amazing keynote from UP, and then we had a panel, and we had Katrina from Fora, we had Jess Gosling from Growth and Grace. We had loads of amazing people on the panel, and it was the beginning of this crazy time that we're all in right now. So it was really useful to kind of talk about how people that, you know, had been working from home a lot before, what they did to cope, and what tips and tricks that they had to help people focus, and how you can like maintain the positivity within your business, within your team, within yourself. It was basically just a perfect time, and it was so successful. Like a lot of people joined and a lot of people gave great feedback, that we then decided to carry on the webinar, something that we hadn't done before. And like I say, we'd only run events every 2 months to go with the issues. So now we're hosting events every 2 weeks, and like it's something that we've kind of built up a little community with, and it is helping because obviously each topic is, I think, quite relevant. So we had, you know, funding, branding, health tech, positive company culture, things that are really important and obviously really relevant to startups and small businesses. But also it's kind of like a time that people can still come together. And I know it's not the same as obviously networking and socialing like you would do in real life, but you have the chat function, you have the question function, and then you can connect people. So like you listen to a webinar, you think they're really interesting, I want to know more about them and their business. So if you don't necessarily connect with them on the webinar, then obviously at Startups Magazine we're happy to connect as many people and, you know, play the dot to dot as much as we can. So that's been really helpful and well received as well, and that's a positive that's come out of coronavirus, because we wouldn't have done that. And again, the Hustle Awards, we've kind of briefly mentioned this because we've been planning this for a year or so, but we had this big awards that we were going to do in July this year to celebrate, you know, all the amazing startups and some of the people in the industry. And obviously we cannot host this event, so we're definitely going to go ahead with it next year still, but we decided we didn't just want to wait, and so we decided that we're going to do it virtually this year. And so we'll announce one winner each week in July and celebrate them, and then do a big webinar at the end of it, beginning of August, and a little events evening for people to come and join and celebrate. And like I say, just it's like a social gathering online, and just come together and be with each other and learn more about each other. And then hopefully it will, you know, build the hype up for next year even more. So if you know anyone that wants to nominate themselves, or if you want to nominate each other, you can find more details coming to our website soon. So definitely get involved with that one.
Which platform do you guys use for your webinars?
We use Zoom at the moment, yes, which has worked quite well for us. I think it was just, you know, everyone knows it, so that we went for that one first of all. But yeah, we are experimenting. I know some people have been using like Facebook Lives and LinkedIn Live and stuff like that, and obviously did Crowdcast. Yeah, Crowdcast works quite well as well.
Yeah.
So many different.
No, I've used Zoom for years, and then again, I've been doing different lives as well at different times. It's just trying to work out what the best time is for everybody as well, because things have just been changing, haven't they, over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks as well. People being furloughed, people going back to work, economy opening up a little bit more. So it's tricky to know when. But you know, people can always watch it on the replays, of course, as well. Yeah. So given that there's no new TV being created for the last couple of months,
which there isn't.
There's nothing on TV, no.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just check out all the latest webinars at night with your cup of tea or glass of wine, whatever you fancy.
Beer.
So how has it affected the industry? Well, I'm sure you all know, because I'm sure you're all part of the industry. But for a lot of people that I've spoken to, it seems as though, I know that I'm going to sound crazy saying this, the startup world was kind of almost ready for something, and as it could be, like this to happen. So, you know, many businesses I've spoken to were already well equipped and implemented to working remotely. Startups work a lot from their bedrooms or shared workspaces or kind of anywhere. That's one of the good things about startups. They're so adaptable. They can literally work anywhere, like park bench, train, like it's crazy. So the virtually working and the working from home hasn't really affected them as much as obviously it has done to some industries. Of course, a massive part of the industry is events and networking, like I said. So that obviously has had an effect on startups and the industry as a whole. But we have seen more webinars, like we said. I mean, Festival Enterprise done so many, like Alex said, so it's amazing. And like we were just saying, you don't have to tune into them. If you miss an event, you miss an event. Like there's no replay. Yeah, you can catch up on the notes if there's a slideshow or whatever, but it's not really the same. Whereas like if you miss a webinar, you can watch the whole thing back. You can't obviously ask a question live, but you can email someone. So in that sense, it's kind of like if you are busy, you're not missing out as much. But yeah, so I've seen so many more webinars. I've seen communities coming together and just hosting like a virtual brunch. And there's no actual like presentation. It's all like, let's all come together at this time. If you want to bring your sandwich, if you want to bring your mimosa, no one's judging you. You're all at home, and let's just have like this chat about anything. And I think that's really nice. So I've joined into some of them, and obviously, like you were saying, on the socials, the lives, they are really useful. Stephanie Melodia from Bloom has been doing an Instagram live every day at lunchtime, and you get a notification, and I sit there and I'm like just doing a few emails, and I put it on and I'm like, this is really great. You can just listen. You don't even have to watch necessarily, as long as you can listen. Then it's great because you're still connecting with these people, and you can just message them or drop into their DMs when it's on social media. It's such an easy way of connecting and networking. And I know, like, I don't want to be like sugarcoating it and, you know, not talking about the nitty-gritty things. I know it has really affected the industry in some ways, but I do think one of the incredible things about startups, and kind of every startup I've come across and worked with, is that they do almost seem ready for anything. So like it's just another hurdle in their journey. One of the questions we ask nearly every time we interview startups for the magazine is, what challenges have you faced along the way? And I've never had anyone say, oh, none. It's been absolutely fine. It's been a breeze. Because it's not like basically running your own business, or like even just working for a business, you don't ever not face a challenge or, you know, face a little hiccup or a hurdle. But you have people around you. Even as a founder, you have a team around you, and you can basically get through anything. Like nothing is impossible. So, you know, it is hard and it is going to be difficult, and, you know, it is going to be like this for a while, I imagine. I'm not Boris, but I think it is going to be like this for a while. So, you know, but we will get through it. Like, you know, things will be okay. I can say that. And obviously that kind of leads me on to one of the big worries that people have. And that is kind of finance and funding, because that can be a tough subject on a normal day, let alone during a global pandemic. So things aren't necessarily as bad as everyone would think. If you have an amazing idea or product, then right now is actually your time, because I've spoken to quite a few founders who have said investors are still out there looking to invest. Not saying everyone is, but there are still some investors out there actively looking to invest. They just want the like absolute shining star. They want the startup that is like, you know, above and beyond. Maybe that's just in a certain area. If you have one thing, maybe it's just down to timing, but if you have that one product or that one idea, you're going to be laughing. And I've heard people say that investors, if you've got the right idea and it's the right time, investors will be fighting to invest with you because they still do want to do that. It's their job at the end of the day too. So, something that isn't going to fail them and is going to thrive through these times. So, it's not all doom and gloom. And some startups have fallen foul to funding. I mentioned a few earlier in my examples, and people have postponed their funding round or, cancelled it completely, but because of Corona came along, and somewhere in the middle of one, like I said, Generate. And it's affected people in terms of finance and funding. But I was talking to Underpinned in a recent webinar, and they said if you plan for the worst and then you still achieve it at a time like this, you're winning. Like, if you always just plan for the worst, which sometimes does sound a bit negative, but you have to be realistic as well, then, it will be okay and you will get through it. And people will start investing again. It's just about planning funding right now and maybe just waiting and focusing on other areas that you could really do with working on and just come back to funding a bit later on. I know a lot of startups will be using this extra time to get creative, and a lot will come up with new ideas or take their businesses in a new direction, spending this time that they didn't plan for and previously never had time for. So like you could be rebranding, just small things, looking at your logo, looking at how you portray yourself on social media, planning a few social media posts that before you wouldn't get to plan them, sorting through admin. I know it sounds so riveting and exciting, just as exciting as decorating your house. We've all done it in these times. But I really do think that the startup industry has reacted really well considering. And as I previously said, founders are super intelligent and creative people, and they will be brainstorming. And I know a lot of people in this time will come up with a new business or a new venture of some sort or a new side project. And some of them will be the next big thing. Uber and WhatsApp were both born out of previous recessions. So it is not all doom and gloom. Good things will come out this time, and we will look back and remember these positives. And it kind of feels weird because everyone is being told to stay away from each other and stay at home. But to me, it feels like the industry seems more connected and people have come together more than ever. There feels like a sense of togetherness. Everyone wants to be helping everyone. And it's like, what can we do for you in this time? What can we do for you? And it's really amazing to see. So I'm so lucky to be a part of this industry. So finally, the future. Well, I'm not going to make any predictions because I'm not psychic. And like I said, I'm not Boris. But
it's only one Boris.
This will lead to some new changes and I think a new era of working. One of my podcast guests said this is a long time coming. This is going to change the shape of the office and how people work. And if you think about it, everyone has adapted and they've made changes and they've made working from home. They've made it work. We've all managed, if not succeeded, from working from home. So I believe that we will be seeing a lot more for remote working from home, flexible working hours, and obviously to our delight, a lot more Zoom calls or, video calls. Like there's been a lot of people that have been not just hosting webinars or like having meetings, but like I know startups that have recruited during this time. So like I was saying, Tended, obviously we're going through a bit of a rubbish time at the beginning and now it's completely flipped. They've pivoted and now they're looking to recruit people. So that's all done virtually. They've interviewed people for a job over Zoom. No one would ever have thought that would have happened. So it really just has shown us that not everything has to be done face to face. There's so much software and tech out there, to help us have meetings. And I think we'll see a lot more of this. And I'm not saying this is the case for everyone and every company. Offices will still exist, but it definitely is a turning point and like a monumental moment. Like without sounding all like philosophic, we are definitely living through a moment of history. So, you've got to look at the positives. We will look back on this one day and think, wow, what a crazy time. Did that actually happen? Pinch me. But I also do think that it is a bit of a wake-up call to people. Anything like this could happen at any time. I mean, hopefully I really hope it's not again in our lifetime something as bad as this, but you never know. So you have to take your business, your opportunities and your chances, and you just have to run with it. You know, you may not get this chance again, and you may hit some barriers along the way. Like I said, there'll be a lot of hurdles and a lot of challenges. If you've read any of Startups magazine, like I say, you'll read so many challenges that people have come across, and then they've got over them, you know. And look at all the startups that are going to come out this the other side. And a lot of people will at the beginning might have thought, no, we won't. But you really will. And like I said, I'm not going to be all like sugarcoating it. Some won't, but again, without repeating myself, these people will just, you know, go back to the drawing board, probably come up with a new idea or just a different version, and then be back even better, you know, back stronger. I think that the coronavirus has really shown people that it is easier to pivot and adapt than people thought. And it's not as scary as it seems. And there's so much help out there. The industry is massive, and there's so many people willing to help you that you're never alone. Even if you're a founder and you haven't employed anyone yet, you're still not alone. There's so many people out there to help. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and just go out there. Like, take the risks, take the jumps, because you will regret it. And with that, I have finished rambling.
That's great. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. But obviously, everyone, you can subscribe for free, so please do. And if you have any questions, or you know, just want to email me and ramble on back at me, or I can connect you with anyone, please then do email me.
And it's kind of looking ahead for you guys. Excuse me if I missed it, but what are you, so events wise, like you say, every new magazine that you launch, and you've gone from like quarterly to bi-monthly now, haven't you?
Yeah.
How far are you guys looking ahead? Are you like going, okay, so we're going to look at the autumn, or is it the winter? I mean, it's so tricky, isn't it? But how about you guys?
Just issue by issue at the moment.
Yeah.
So obviously the first issue we did when Corona broke out, we were like, we can't print, but hopefully we'll be printing again by the next one. And then obviously it lasted a lot. It's lasting a lot longer than we all first thought. So we just had a call about it a couple of weeks ago and was like, we're not being able to print this one, you know, carry on with webinars. We've got webinars planned until like the end of June. So, you know, we're just taking it bit by bit. But I mean, even if things did pick up, I don't think they will, but even if things did pick up, people start going back to work, you're not going to have events for a long time. So I think webinars and that will be relevant for a very long time, like you were saying, in the events. That's going to be the last thing, isn't it, to kind of pick up again. But yeah, it's just, you know, taking it step by step, day by day, which it isn't a problem for us. We can kind of work like that. So yeah, we're lucky in that sense.
Yeah, no, you know, a lot of the founders, CEOs that I've spoken to over the last couple of months have, you know, said, you know, 10-year business plan, 5-year, 3-year, 1 year, put that on ice. Let's just look at the next 3 or 4 weeks and just take it at that time, because things are changing so rapidly, and we obviously have got our eye on what's happening elsewhere in the world. I've just seen somebody like post up, you know, picture of them sat at a cafe in Australia, and they're like, oh, nice to be doing some old familiar things again. And I thought, we can still only dream about that over here, having a flat white sat at a cafe.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so it has been interesting, and yeah, I'm like you. I've taken loads of positives from this, even though, again, like, you know, my main business is creating podcasts, as you know, and a lot of people just put those plans on ice straight away. But it's been interesting that last 2 or 3 weeks, been getting more and more inquiries coming through for people going, yeah. But it's kind of prefaced with the when this is over, because, you know, a lot of people just looked at their budgets and just cut stuff out. And a lot of the people I was speaking to, like the marketing departments, well, that was often the first, you know, part of the businesses that were furloughed. So I think it's only when those kind of departments come back that a lot of creative industry is going to be able to start working again as well, which is, you know, predominantly freelancers, of course, isn't it? And that's a lot of the startup world tap into the talents of freelancers, so they don't have to pay, you know, those overheads such as salaries. Workspace is another one, of course. Oliver says, for us, it had a very dramatic halt around 50% of our work, which is focused around work for the events presentation industry. There you go. On the flip side, we had an influx in requests to help design coronavirus related products, which will hopefully lead to recovering some of the lost revenue from the former. Adapting and changing the business in this time I think is critical. We'll be looking at new products to develop off the back of this outbreak. Yeah, and I mean, interestingly, a number of the businesses I've spoken to, people are actually doing well at the moment as well. That's the thing, depending on what space you're in, like some physical products. If you're in the health, fitness, wellness space, it's mad, like gyms might not be doing well at all, yet gym equipment, home gym equipment, is going great guns. So if you just kind of think that kind of parallel, that lateral thinking, it's quite interesting, a lot of the developments.
Yeah, and I think with that, like Oliver was saying, they've been doing different works, they've been designing stuff in the COVID space. It kind of like gives you a chance to have like a mini, not a career break, but you're doing something different. So it's like a change. So like some people will welcome that because they'll think, oh, I was doing my same job for so many years or so many months or whatever. And then they'll think, oh, it's a little break. But they know that they are going to go back to their job and they're all what they were doing. But it's like, yeah, if you can do something else in the meantime, like your business like can take another direction and do other bits, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Esther says, we are providing all our support services online rather than physically face-to-face. We're planning to continue this for the next 4 months at least. We have been forced to innovate. Yeah, so many have been forced to innovate, or, again, I was chatting to a CEO right at the beginning, and they said, they literally looked at this to get a blank sheet of paper and look at it from, if we were to start again, what would we do? What would we do marketing wise? What would we do communications wise? Why is it that we've done what we've done for the last 30 years? If it's because it's worked, great, but it might not be. So let's look at it, let's use this opportunity and just start with a blank canvas and rewrite things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's amazing that people can do that.
Yeah. So Oliver says again, so in the pre-world, we would do a lot of door-to-door meetings. So in the pre-coronavirus world, we would do a lot of face-to-face meetings on site, which would allow us to drum up new businesses and take a walk around the site, as well as to try and show how we could help. This isn't quite something that can be done over Zoom, etc. And I'm not one for cold calling over the phone. So what alternatives or suggestions or approaches would you suggest for connecting with other new businesses or clients? Do you want to answer that one first, and then I'll answer as well?
I guess face-to-face obviously isn't the best, but you can always log on to other webinars or other like meetings, and you're not then like face-to-face, and you can just meet people, through that, and pick up their email and kind of connect with people in that sense. There's obviously also social media as well, which I know people don't always like, but I think that's a really powerful tool because you can kind of like build a relationship with people beforehand. You can go and comment on their post or like their picture and evoke conversation naturally through that before just like hounding people straight away through a direct, do you want this, do you want that, blah blah blah, and just finding out what people need and like what people may need your services, finding them out, and then again starting the conversation more naturally. Doesn't feel like you're hounding them, like you say, face to face.
No, I mean, and I think LinkedIn is a great tool, and I don't again feel that you're cold calling. I mean, personally, the only ones that I'm happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn, and these live webinars have been unbelievable for that. I've just got a hell of a lot to catch up on. I've got about 500 requests from people in the last 6 weeks to connect, which is amazing network building. But for me, it's when those people then bombard you with that kind of standard, and it's usually automated, isn't it? You get like 3 follow-up emails in a really, really short period of time, and you're like, whoa, hang on a minute, I haven't even had time to check out this one, or that it's overtly salesy to start with. For me, I think it's something Anna just mentioned before. You build a relationship to start with. So for me, it's you maybe draw up a spreadsheet, and you've got your ideal clients that you want to work with. And you start, liking, commenting, sharing is always the biggest one. I think on their posts, they get to know who you are. They'll check you out in time, as long as I think you've got, fully optimized profile on your social media as well. And I do think, personally, LinkedIn is there to be connected. It is that tool. Other social media platforms are, a little different. They've all got their idiosyncrasies, obviously, but I think something like LinkedIn is perfect for, for getting in touch with people, connecting with people that you've never connected with before.
Definitely.
So him and Shu says, we've been providing help more innovatively so that the firm gets the most out of us. Joe says, necessity is the mother of invention. Absolutely. And it's been very inspiring to see the way that some startups are grasping the nettle, adapting and changing their businesses to meet the current challenges. Him and Shu posts up his website there. Yeah, please post up your link. Loads of people watch these on the replays. More people watch webinars on the replays than they ever do on the lives, and ours gets then lifted and put on the YouTube channel as well. Plus, this is getting streamed through Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. Like Oliver says, LinkedIn is probably the best route social media for us to take. I'll keep an eye out for any master selling on LinkedIn webinars in the near future. Yeah, there was a really good one by my friend Umesh Kumar, who's doing another one next week, which was selling like a boss. And he's invested in a number of startups. He's raised funding for 3 out of his 4 businesses, I think, thus far as well. And that was that was one of the most popular ones we've done, actually. I think that was only last week. Umesh Kumar, Sell Like a Boss, I think it was called. That was really good. But I think that's the best way forward at the moment, because I'm the same as you. I wouldn't necessarily pick the phone up and speak to someone, because I think these days, if you don't recognize the number, 99% of people just don't answer it, do they?
Yeah.
And other forms of social media. I mean, for me, again, like with my podcast, for just my own personal example, I probably get 90% through LinkedIn, and then maybe 5% through Twitter and 5% through Insta. But Insta's definitely increasing. And that's just because I'm being more active on there. And I saw today, like Stephen Bartlett from Social Chain posting up that Instagram and Facebook are both opening like shop fronts on there as well for people. So social platforms, people are adapting massively in that space, and people are trying to get people to, connect better. I think B2B is just going to happen more and more now, because all of these businesses are being forced to adapt. And so social platforms aren't just for social connection, they're becoming more and more for business connection. So let me double check. Any more questions from the question tab? We answered them all. I think we've answered them all. Anybody else? Any last questions? Pop them in. Otherwise, Anna has got her last slide up there that you can see. So you can follow Startups Magazine. You go to the website startupmagazine.co.uk. Anna's got hers there. You can take a picture with your phone. Likewise, myself, Alex Chisnell, dead easy to find on LinkedIn. As I say, always happy to connect with everybody off the back of these webinars. Like I say, we are finishing up this week on Friday at 12 o'clock with webinar number 99. I'm hosting one tomorrow at 2 o'clock on amplifying your brand with podcasting. If you'd like to register for that one, love to have you on board for that one and tell you more about leveraging podcast as part of your marketing for your brand and telling your story. Thanks, Anna. Any last words from you that have come to you in a Boris-like way that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just reiterating what I said. I think this time has surprised us. It's been amazing to see some of the amazing work. It's inspired me, and we are always willing to help anyone in any way we can. So if you're a startup, if you're not, if you're just in the industry, you don't have to be a startup yourself, then please just reach out, and we would love to help you and get your story out there.
Appreciate it. And just remind us again, your Next Level webinar is next week.
Yes, next Thursday. It's all about it's a pitching party, so it's all about finance in these times, and we've got 4 different types of finance experts, and they're going to be pitching to you as well, the audience, as to why their type is best.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Thank you all very much indeed. Much appreciated. Thank you for joining us. As I say, that's it for today. back at 12 o'clock tomorrow with a startup, funnily enough, with Speechify, who have come out of the Antler, the Startup Generator program, of which I'm an advisor. I met them in Amsterdam, actually, and they're doing great things in the AI space. So come and join us for that tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and then join me talking podcasting at 2 o'clock. Anna, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, and catch you all on the other side.